Hey, Xiomy here. So today I wanted to do Top 5 Wednesdays, and Top 5 Wednesday was created by Lainey over on Ginger Reads Lainey, but now it's being hosted by Sam from Thoughts on Tomes. And I'm going to have everything linked down below just in case you're interested in checking it out. But today's topic for discussion is books to get you out of a reading slump. Now, I always say that this depends on personal preference and what you actually like to read, you know, as an individual, because some books that I might like to read that have gotten me out of a reading slump might get you into a reading slump. So it basically depends on personal preference and, you know, the genres that you like to read and what you like to read. But these are books that have gotten me out of a reading slump, and I like to follow these steps, or that, you know, choose these kinds of books when I'm in a reading slump so I can actually get out of it. So I'm gonna share with you my tips that actually get me out of a reading slump. So let's get into it. The first one that I want to mention is audiobooks. Now, like somebody commented in my video, it all depends what audiobook, because an audiobook can make it or break it, because there are some audiobooks that are just horrible, and I have to admit it, that they're just completely horrible. But there are those audiobooks that are just so lovely and so enjoyable and so memorable that, you know, you want to continue reading audiobooks, especially if they have good qualities, especially if they have different intonations. Even though it's one narrator throughout the entire book, you know, when they have different intonations for different characters, you can see the enthusiasm being placed into that book. And one that I can say is Heartless. I did hear Heartless in audiobook format, and I really did love it and enjoy it. I also read Aristotle and Dante Discover the Secrets of the Universe in audiobook, and that is a very, very good one. Another one that I can mention is the Fallen Kingdom series. Also does have a very good narrator. Even though he is a male, you can see that different intonations that he does place on different characters. That's something that I have to appreciate. But it all depends on what kind of audiobook you pick up, and as long as it has, like I've mentioned, those different kinds of intonations, it makes it a very pleasurable reading experience. Another one that can get you out of a reading slump is graphic novels. Now, this obviously depends on personal preference. I always take graphic novels as something like light to read, because even though you are reading like little bits and pieces of a book, you still are generally reading, even though if it is, you know, in small sections. And it's something that, you know, will basically tend to get you out of a reading slump. Books that I really do enjoy, like I've mentioned, I do love DC, and I love reading any graphic novels that are about DC, because obviously they will get you out of a reading slump. This one, The Greatest Battles Between Batman and Superman, was one that I really highly enjoyed, like so much. And this one, which is Justice League Origin, it was another one that I really highly enjoyed. The ones that I'm going to mention that I really did enjoy were Avatar: The Last Airbender graphic novels. Now, this is a continuation of the TV series, so I actually suggest that you pick that up before actually like diving into these books. But it's something that's very enjoyable and something that's really fast, because you can read these books you know, at extremely fast paced. The next one that I'm very fond of is to reread a loved book, because sometimes rereading a book that it's a world that you loved can make a world of a difference, because you already know that world and you're going back into something that you treasured so dearly. So actually like going back and rereading something can actually like lighten the mood and actually give you enthusiasm to pick up a different book. The ones that I can say that I really did enjoy and sometimes I have reread is Six of Crows by Leigh Bardugo, the duology. I love these books. These books will get you out of a reading slump because they're so enjoyable. They have such diverse characters and the world building is so great. The writing style is amazing, and you'll end up loving these characters. That's why I say that, you know, this is a series that I'm very fond of, and it is something that it's very dear to my heart, and it's one that I will always recommend because it is a very pleasurable reading experience. The next one that I can mention is Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, whether it be in this format or the illustrated version format. Especially the first book is one that I think that'll make you feel like a child again, and I always say that's something that's very enthusiastic, when a book can actually make you feel, you know, transported into, you know, a younger version of yourself. Is something that's quite enjoyable, and you can get a lot of enthusiasm into continue reading, especially a series as big as this one. Another one that I can also say that can get you out of a reading slump is to read short books or to read poetry. Poetry is something that, I know poetry isn't for everybody, but poetry can be so lovely when you actually discover what kind of poetry you like, because there's so many different kinds of poets out there and there is an array for you to choose from. But this is one that I recently just read and I really did enjoy, and it's Milk and Honey. It's something that is short, but obviously you're reading along the way, but it can get you out of a reading slump because you're reading something different, and you know, you're actually seeing it through a different points of view. And it's something that's very enjoyable, because poetry, even though sometimes poetry is a little bit difficult and sometimes people don't get it, it's just, you know, something that you overanalyze, or just read it to enjoy it, which is something that I always say in poetry. Poetry is very pleasurable, especially when you take it in a different kind of sense, or whether it's symbolic representation of something else. Poetry is something that's very very lovely to read about. But don't go and read, you know, these old versions of poetry. Read modern poetry or poets that, you know, are different, whether it be short or the way that they illustrate it. It's just something that's quite enjoyable if you actually like pick it up and enjoy it so much. The other one that I'm gonna say is read books that are outside your comfort zone, because sometimes if you're like heavily like into fantasy, sometimes you can get a little bit bored about reading a specific kind of genre. I love fantasy, is the only thing that I actually read, but I was noticing that I would continuously read fantasy. So once I deviated from that genre, it was something that was very pleasurable because I pick up different books, and sometimes reading something outside of your comfort zone can make a world of a difference and can actually like boost your enthusiasm to read something else. A couple of books that I can mention is Illuminate. I really did enjoy this book. It's because it's told so distinctively. You have text messaging, you have dossiers, you have surveillance footages. There are so many ways that this book is told that it makes it a really enjoyable reading experience. And even though it is sci-fi, it's something that's very distinctive from things that I have seen. And even though you might not like sci-fi, this is a very good book to read, because I'm not fond of sci-fi books, but I picked this one up and I really did enjoy it because of the way that it's told, and it's like you're watching a movie while reading this book. The next one that I can suggest is, you know, if you love fairy tales, then I suggest that you pick up the Lunar Chronicles. Cinderella, even though this book didn't wow me, the second one really did, and so on forth. You know, it's a very amazing series once you pass the first book, because I really didn't enjoy the first book that much, but I pulled through and I continued, and it's one of my all-time favorite series. But it is something that's very distinctive because you have basically like a dystopian era here, but it's so sci-fi, and you have so many elements of retelling in this book, and you also have this one evil queen to rule them all. It's something that is very enjoyable, and the characters are so amazing, so diverse, so distinctive, that you actually just fall in love with them as to how funny and tenacious and fierce they are. They're just so sometimes witty, and you want to root for them so badly. So it's a series that I actually suggest that you actually pick up. Well, those are all the recommendations that I can give to get you out of a reading slump. These are ones that, like I mentioned, that I follow that have helped me in a reading slump. So I want to thank you for watching my video, and until next time, peace.